Hello, today we are thinking about titles of books. Sometimes that persuades us to buy a book, sometimes it's the cover, of course, but there are several categories I'm going to be discussing book titles under with more than one example for each, because of course it's an excuse to pull out every book on your bookshelves or look at them all and say, does this fit? We start off with what is funny. Book titles that are funny. And unsurprisingly, a lot of the ones that I've used here are written by humorous people. For example, You Can't Go Wrong with P.G. Wodehouse. Ants Aren't Gentlemen, I think, is a bit of a joy for a title. And ants, of course, are recurring figures in his stories. A humorist, Lynn Truss, I want to make a shout out for. Making the Cat Laugh, which is her book about being single and what it's like. And I would like to read you a little tiny bit from it, because this I thought was hilarious. It was written a little while back, so these are columns from her writings in UK newspapers, and it was whenever Batman and Catwoman came out, and she was told, Batman Returns, she was told by a colleague that actually the Michelle Pfeiffer character looked a bit like her, and so she was like, oh, fantastic. And this is her way of describing it. After all, Michelle Pfeiffer and I are seldom mentioned in the same breath, and on the evidence of the publicity shots of Catwoman, the patent leather catsuit, the high heels, whip and hood with little black ears, I have to admit I was chuffed and flattered. As I stood in the ticket queue at Leicester Square, I preened myself by licking the back of my hand and rubbing my forehead with it. I flexed my painted claws. Meow, I thought. How perceptive of this male acquaintance to realise that while I portray myself in this column as a frowsy, spinsterish stay-at-home, in reality I am a lithe, crazy, dangerous, feline-type creature who prowls the moonlit rooftops after dark, purring to the sounds of the nighttime city. But alas, no sooner was I embarked on my second vat of popcorn than I noticed that the Michelle Pfeiffer character in Batman Returns is a frowsy, spinsterish stay-at-home, instantly recognisable as single-life material at its most abject and pitiable. Her name is Selina. Each evening she bursts into your apartment with a ritualistic shout of, "Honey, I'm home," followed by, "Oh, I forgot, I'm not married." She kicks off her shoes, listens to the answering machine, pours milk for the cat, talks aimlessly to herself. Evidently, it was Selina, not Catwoman, that my friend had been talking about. I put my head in my popcorn tub for a moment and screamed with the minimum disruption. And finally, and perhaps more intriguingly, and this would be my option if there'd been an intriguing title to think about, 12 Miles from a Lemon. Selected writings and sayings of Sidney with a Y Smith, who was a clergyman and very funny. And his parish was out in the sticks, so to speak, in rural, and he made the most of it. A lot of people who had this kind of work just went and lived in the city and got somebody else to do their sermons, but he did take on board his role as a reverend in the area. And this was his description, that he said where he was living, writing back to his posh friends in London, that he was now living 12 miles from a lemon. So I enjoy that. Next, I'm considering shocking titles. And how about one that says The Beast in Me? What would you expect from that? Well, the full title is The Beast in Me and Other Stories, and it's by James Thurber. So it's actually humorous, and there's the requisite beagles. Oh, look. Look what I've used for a bookmark. Happy days. A good book and a bar of chocolate. What more could you ask for? Scary titles, not quite scary, but ha, bloody ha. Comedians Talking. And this is by William Cook, and it's way back to the days of alternative comedy in the Comedy Store. That's Eddie Izzard, just to give you an idea of how times have changed. And they're literally interviewed separately and then under titles to do with punters and school days and great gigs and so forth. And the people involved were the up-and-coming comedians at the time. And finally, for alarming titles, Catching Life by the Throat, How to Read Poetry and Why by Josephine Hart. And this book is delightful, and it's all about the fact that poetry needs to be spoken out loud, and Josephine Hart took time to sign up people to read publicly poems, and it still continues to this day, I think. Without poetry, I would have found life less comprehensible, less bearable, and infinitely less enjoyable. So she has put in a selection of poets. We have W.H. Auden, Emily Dickinson, T.S. Eliot, Rudyard Kipling, Philip Larkin, Marianne Moore, Sylvia Plath, and William Butler Yeats. Catching Life by the Throat. A great book on poetry and getting into it. Okay, I'm going too slow here. Let's speed up a little bit. So I'm thinking about titles which are like a line of poetry. Put Out More Flags by Evelyn Waugh, or Evelyn Waugh, even. And that's taken from a quote which is originally in Chinese, which is all about a drunk military man should order gallons and put out more flags in order to increase his military splendour. Lovely little book. Good fun to read. Now, The British Museum is Falling Down by David Lodge, set in 1960s, humorous, about a PhD student and going to work in the British Museum as it was for studying. He wanted to call it The British Museum Has Lost Its Charm, which is from a Gershwin song, but the estate would not let him have it, so he had to use instead The British Museum Is Falling Down, which in itself sounds a bit like a song title. What about book titles that ask a question of the reader? Well, this didn't so much maybe ask a question as it intrigued me. Flaneuse. And it would kind of make you think, well, what is a flaneuse? We know what a flaneur is. It's a man who tends to walk the streets of a city. Think about it a bit. And this is flaneuse. Men, stroked out women, walk the city in Paris, New York, Tokyo, Venice and London. And it's by Lauren Elkin. Very popular everywhere. Good to read, although it is very much tied into her own personal experience and where she has been. And something that is a question. What makes a great exhibition? Questions of practice, so it is full of questions. And it's a variety of curators, with it edited by Paula Marinicola. And it dates back to 2006. And people are asked on their opinions, people who are expert curators. Now, I want to think about books that are kind of heartwarming. So, I have got a couple about friendship. Love and Salt. A spiritual friendship shared in letters between two people, and they are talking about their faith and their life as they go through life's ups and downs. They get married, they have kids, they don't have kids, they have sickness, and they write letters to and from each other. And there's deep thinking, but it's also a good friendship going on. Quite unusual. It's by Amy Andrews and Jessica Mesman Griffith, if you want to get a copy. And I also loved Square Haunting. It's written by Francesca Wade. It's in every library I think you can care to name. And it's started off with a quote from Virginia Woolf. I like this London life in early summer, the streets sauntering and square haunting. And the characters are H.D., Dorothy L. Sayers, Jane Ellen Harrison, Eileen Parr, and Virginia Woolf. Now, I'm thinking about titles that have an unusual combination of words. We have Frank Skinner's A Comedian's Prayer Book, which is hilarious, thought-provoking, very small, but I've noticed various things I thought were interesting. And here's an unusual combination of words in the title. Legendary authors and the clothes they wore. So it's very glossy, full of all the usual suspects and how they dressed, which is a whole different other way of looking at it. And 2 words unusually put together in a title for one excellent book, Black Rainbow. This is by Rachel Kelly. How Words Healed Me, My Journey Through Depression. Very serious clinical depression, and how words were part of what helped her recover. Intriguing. Now I'm going to think about a couple of books which have fantastical titles. How about one with the word enchanted in it? The Enchanted April. Anybody who watches what me talking about books will know that was coming up. By Elizabeth von Arnim. Fabulous story. It's about women in winter in the UK in sort of Edwardian times who decide that they're going to club together. They don't really know each other well, but they can just about afford to stay in a villa in Italy for a wee while, and how it changes their lives. Utterly delightful. Brilliant to read on a dark day, or a dreich day, as we'd say in Scotland here, or it's raining and you're just overcome by the weather. The Enchanted April. Also a terrific series and TV. That's how I first of all saw it. A contradiction title, or something that describes the impossible, would be The Story of Art by Katie Hessel, which, without men, the story of art without men. And that, of course, means it can't be real, it's limited. And she also has people who were married to male artists, and they're not even mentioned at all. So it's as if she's taking a big rubber eraser. So it's good to hear about women artists, but it's very artificial. And I think there's shelf loads of other books which have traced the history of women in art and done it better and in a more balanced sort of way. And finally, describing the impossible. 1001 movies you must see before you die. And of course there are variations of that in literature as well. The books you must read before you die. And when you look through them, you start to think, yes, I want to see. No, I don't want to see that. And there's really quite a lot that you don't really want to see. And 1001 movies to see before you die, or 1001 books to read. Well, depending how young you are when you start, for some of us that's more of a challenge, shall we say. So I hope you've enjoyed these titles of books, and that they let you think maybe about the books you've got, why you have them, and did the titles be part of the attraction initially in getting them. Bye for now.